Everyone, it's Adrienne here. I wanted to stop by and share a message with you today in regards to healing trauma and specifically taking a somatic approach to healing. And the reason why I wanted to come on and share this with you is something that I heard really sparked this desire to want to come on and share this with you. So I think it was yesterday morning, I was driving in my car and I was listening to Spotify, and there was a ad for therapy that claimed that 60% of all Americans suffer from some sort of work-related stress. And it's not the first time I've heard the ad. And each time I've heard it, twice now, I had to really pause and ask myself, is this really work-related stress that they're speaking about? Or is it actually an accumulation of a variety of societal stressors that simply show up in places that we spend most of our time, like work? And sorry, I had to close my window. The traffic was making too much noise. But so this highlights an issue that I run into as a somatic practitioner and as an integrative healing coach. And it's really prevalent, let's say, in the general population. I've had to address it on my healing journey, so that you could benefit from hearing what I have to share with you today. And you might have some version of this in your own journey, which I'd love to hear about in the comments. But the first thing that I thought about after what I just shared, so it's actually the second thing, is that if over half of the population reports high levels of workplace stress, I have to wonder if perhaps this therapy organization isn't missing the big picture. And I bring this up because it reveals something deeper about therapeutic healing, trauma resolution, trauma recovery. And bottom line, it is pointing to the symptoms of what happens when we are systematically asked to disconnect from our embodied experience and our embodied state. So I'm going to say some more about that if that doesn't make sense quite yet. But it's not just a random occurrence. I would say that it's a prerequisite for living in our culture. This disconnect is actually an adaptive stress response. It's a survival strategy shaped by the environments, many of the environments that we inhabit, our families, our schools, our workplaces, our institutions that are focused and reward over functioning, emotional suppression, and this hustle culture or constantly wanting to be productive, to show that we have value. And it's in this context that work stress becomes a symptom of something much larger, of our whole system and how it operates. So I found that this actually introduces one of the biggest hurdles to healing trauma, resolving trauma, and that's what I want to share with you today. So it becomes the difference between managing symptoms versus actually resolving them. And to be honest, on my own journey as a yoga practitioner and meditator for over 20 years, I have fallen into this trap as well. So I'm hoping by sharing what I'm going to share with you today, you can perhaps avoid some of the pitfalls. So if you're listening to this, you may already know that trauma is quite a complex thing. It doesn't just live in our prefrontal cortex. It lives in our body. It's encoded in our breath patterns, our muscle tone, our tissues, our nervous system responses. So that when we approach practices like yoga or meditation, breath work, or any modality, we are from the get-go already pre-trained to access it through a mental channel. And what we really are missing at times is we never develop the access to the body channel or learn how to speak the body's language. That's why a lot of times doing mindset work or talk therapy can be helpful, but it doesn't actually go far enough. It doesn't sink down into the deeper layers where these patterns are embedded. So while these tools might provide relief, and as I mentioned, management, they don't always go down to the embodied level of stuckness or overwhelm or anxiety or shutdown, where it's all stored in our tissues. So without addressing the body's channels of communication, this sense of any lasting transformation is hard to access. So as I mentioned, complex trauma is complex by nature. It is embodied in multiple layers of our being, often below the level of our conscious mind or our prefrontal cortex. And that's why it's so important to learn how to speak body, let's say, and its unique signals and the patterns. And when you are stressed or overwhelmed or anxious or tired or tense, or you have trouble focusing or you're procrastinating, a lot of these symptoms that we have were compensational behaviors to avoid and to survive our environments and our surroundings, because we didn't have, in our developmental phases, we didn't have the cognitive processes, we didn't have the linguistic expression, and we didn't have the ability to hold or process these states in our body, because we weren't fully developed and we were depending on the people around us to help us regulate and navigate these types of intense experiences. And most often than not, the people around us didn't have the skills to help us hold it. So there's cycles of incomplete stress cycles stuck in our body, and it's not like it just happened once, right? There's an event, and there's no time, no space, no resource to process it, so it's incomplete and it's in our system, and then that starts shaping the way we hold ourselves energetically, emotionally, cognitively, and then it's accumulative, and there's another incident and then another incident, and so our whole nervous system is being shaped by these incomplete cycles. And so it's really getting the tools, accessing the tools to gain the capacity to interpret and translate these signals in our body correctly that we may never have had the language for, so we can begin to define the physiological stress states and notice the patterns when we go into freeze, when we go into collapse, when we begin to somatically armor ourselves unconsciously, because it's just it's been part of who we are for so long, until we can begin to gather the ability to witness that in ourselves. It's really difficult to find out what sort of medicine or approach to apply. So when we don't do this, a lot of times we end up not circumventing an opportunity to learn, to grow, to expand. And another level of this is we end up sometimes blaming the people around us or circumstances. And this is really disempowering as well, because we feel powerless. We feel like we're a victim of our lives, and we're just not. We just never were given the tools. So as a somatic practitioner, my work is making nervous system education the norm and not the exception. And this means learning a whole new language of embodiment. That's what I call it, the language of embodiment. And it is decoding the information in our systems and bringing online a larger lens through all the channels of our organic system. And that is what I'm hoping to share with you. I'm going to be coming on each week to share little bits and pieces around this topic, because I think it's super important, and to support ourselves, not to find ways that might temporarily bring relief, but they don't actually shift the underlying pattern. So in order to support you in doing this, I made a little guide called Energetic Self-Stewardship. And it's just a little simple exercise, powerful, in starting to dip your toe in, if you haven't already, and starting to notice the signals in your body, your nervous system, and then some tools that you can use to meet yourself, to start expanding your vocabulary of embodiment. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to me, send me a direct message, and I'm happy to send you my guide that I made. It's free, and it's just a little way of reaching out, saying thank you for your support, for listening, and taking care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, when we start making the shift with our own nervous system, the people around us respond, they react, and they want to know what's going on. What have you been doing? And we can share that with them as well. So thanks for stopping by. If you did today, let me know leave me a comment or a thumbs up. Let me know where you are in your journey, things that you've learned about trauma, because we're always learning from each other. And I'll be on next week doing a little share about ways that we unintentionally may be reinforcing incomplete stress cycles or trauma in our body. All right. I hope you're having a great day. Until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.